Rebel Moon is the newest movie from Zack Snyder, following up on the heels of his most recent projects, Army of the Dead, and making Justice League 4x3. I'm willing to bet this project started off as Zack Snyder wanting to make a Star Wars movie, but because he's in bed with the enemy, Warner Brothers, Disney said no, and he was like, fine, I'll just make my own Star Wars. And I'll combine it with Firefly.
With blackjack and hookers.
And then he sold the project to Netflix, and here it is. Anyway, Film School 101 be damned, because Snyder decides to tell, not show us, that in a distant universe there is a spacefaring society ruled by a king. This empire stretched out far beyond the stars, colonizing a ton of worlds in the process. But one day, the king and his entire line are killed by a man named Belisarius, and he grabs control of the throne. And he rules with an iron fist, creating the Empire. Motherworld. And many societies and worlds that don't want to bow to Motherworld have created the rebellion and are trying to overthrow the new king. We cut to a farming village where we meet Cora. We're told, not shown of course, that Cora has a tragic past and she was found in a crashed ship years ago. One day, Motherworld troops, led by Atticus Noble, yeah, that's his real name, stop by the planet asking for supplies. And when they're told no, they kill the leader with a laser sword. No, it's not a lightsaber. Do you have any idea how many lawyers Disney has? Atticus tells the villagers they have 10 weeks to get all his supplies together, and takes off, leaving behind a garrison of just comedically sociopathic troops and a robot who befriends a young girl. And yet again, we are told, not shown, the story from the introduction. By the way, I know how it may look, but this robot is definitely not K2SO from Rogue One. It is, however, a former evil battle droid that now has a reformed existence. Meanwhile, the townspeople try to decide what they're going to do, and they decide that they're going to give the troops just more of what they're asking for. And despite this clearly flawless plan, Cora's dad suggests that they fight back instead. Cora, on the other hand, decides the best course of action is to GTFO, and goes and grabs a horse to try and get out of town. However, she sees the soldiers trying to force themselves on the same young girl that befriended the robot before. She diagnoses the situation and prescribes a healthy dose of murder, and because all the soldiers try to kill her one at a time, they're all taken out. And pretty much just like that, Farming Village is now on board with the rebellion. We learn through even more exposition that Cora used to be a member of the Imperium, basically like Navy SEALs for Motherworld. She was recruited when she was a young girl, when Belisarius, yeah, the same guy who killed the king and his whole family, killed her entire village and just scooped her up and enrolled her in the program. She rises through the ranks and actually becomes a commander of the Imperium before leaving for some unspecified reason. We're shown that her boyfriend does get killed in action, but it doesn't really seem to impact her, so it's probably not that. And honestly, it's never made clear throughout the entire movie. And this all ends up with her eventually crashing on Farmville. Geez, that is an old reference. But given her past, she knows that with what happened, Motherworld is going to bring the pain on her village, and decides to try and get help from the rebels. Since this guy over here, Gunner, sold grain to the rebels before, the two set off on an adventure to find the rebellion. Does this sound familiar yet? No? Alright, stay tuned. They travel to a neighboring town that's definitely not Mos Eisley, where they look for a new ally in a bar, only for the ignorant newcomer to have a run-in with an alien, and for the experienced former soldier to have to defend them. They get some information on the location of the rebel homeworld from a brain bug. Geez, he even put some Starship Troopers in here too. And they also draw the attention of Jax Teller. Just kidding, this is Kai, a pilot with a 3-letter name who's going to help our heroes get off-world, and only is really interested in money. On the way to the rebel planet, Cora wants to go and pick up a guy named Titus, who's a former general with the Imperium. She knows that he left the Imperium too, and could be a real big asset to their team. But first, they stop off on a desert planet and talk to a greedy slave owner, who they gamble with to try to get him to release one of their slaves, who could be a huge asset to the good guys. Now the wager isn't about pod racing this time, but all he has to do is tame a wild animal on the property. He ends up riding a hippogriff, giving us nods to Harry Potter and Avatar at the same time, and ends up earning his freedom going off with the heroes. Kai tells our heroes that he knows about another warrior they can pick up, and they stop and meet Nemesis, a cyborg samurai who uses red energy swords, not lightsabers, and rescues kids from a half-human, half-spider alien on her world. Seriously, is there a reason this couldn't be the main story? I would watch the hell out of this. And interestingly enough, this spider is actually played by Jenna Malone, who continues to prove that the only real winner from the Hunger Games is Jeffrey Wright, and his prize was a long and very awesome career. Nemesis joins the team, and it's time for everybody's favorite part, more exposition! Back in the Imperium, Cora ended up working her way all the way to being the princess's personal guard. We also see that the princess apparently had superpowers and could resurrect animals from the dead. The king also told Cora that his daughter is his hope for a brighter and more compassionate future when she takes over as ruler. Now, of course, you could just, be a more compassionate ruler. You don't have to wait for your daughter to take the throne. You could stop conquering and colonizing worlds whenever you want. But, let's just push that off on future generations. And with that, Zack Snyder finally gets the trifecta of references, referencing the real world in his film. One thing to note, though, we do know from the opening narration that apparently the princess is killed by Belisarius, and we do see that Cora genuinely cares for her, so maybe that's what got her to leave, but again, we're never given a clear answer on this. We do finally find Titus, and he's basically a vagrant at this point, But one bath and a little pep talk later and he is good to go. Also, side note here, but Heimdall looks excellent with Thor's beard. We then rendezvous with the rebels we've been looking for. The two leaders, who are brother and sister, basically come out and tell Korra that defeating Motherworld is pretty much impossible. They have a massive force, and even with all the rebels, they really are outnumbered significantly. But Korra looks at him and basically says nut up or shut up, and the brother, who is named Bloodaxe, again, his real name, actually agrees and makes a total 180 and joins the team. He even brings some rebels with him to help out with the fight. The only problem is, Motherworld actually found out the location of the rebel homeworld and kills their informant with the most overly engineered execution device I have ever seen. All before laying waste to the rebel home base with a planet-killing gun. Geez, it's almost like death from the stars or something. Our heroes stop off at a smuggling planet to try and unload some of Kai's cargo, only for Kai to go turncoat and capture every single one of them. His plan all along has been to use Korra's story to round up a whole bunch of people sympathetic to the cause, and then turn them all over to the Motherworld for a huge bounty. And by the way, just for some context, we do find out that the slave guy from earlier is actually an exiled prince, and Nemesis spends her time slaughtering Imperium soldiers when spiders aren't available. And apparently Korra, who is now being called Scargiver by Atticus, is said to have the biggest bounty out of all of them. Is this ever explained throughout the rest of the movie? Oh, it sure isn't, but Kai takes a page out of the Bond villain's handbook and tries to get Gunnar to kill Korra. And of course, that would be done using the over-engineered device from before. But he refuses and a battle ensues. Also, Kai says that apparently he knows Gunnar loves Korra. It's just too bad that once again we get told that and can't see it for ourselves. A massive battle rages on using beam swords, guns, and ships, and Kai is killed almost immediately, and then Bloodaxe is killed as well, bringing down the biggest ship in the fleet. And this is all before Bloodaxe got to use an axe on anything. Hell, I'd have settled for a bloody guitar at this point.
A few hundred years, that'll be really funny. It's a slow burner.
The ship that got brought down is actually Motherworld's flagship called the King's Gaze. It's brought down and Korra and Atticus fight, with Atticus getting mortally wounded and then falling to his death. But you know, based on what we've been seeing this whole time, I wouldn't be surprised if he shows up in another 15 years with robot legs or something. What's now left of the rebellion looks over the victory and says that with the death of a high-ranking member, the rest of the fleet is probably going to retreat for the time being. So for now, Farmtown, actually called Velt by the way, is going to be safe. The film ends with all of our heroes going back to their village and the robot from earlier keeping guard. And sure enough, Motherworld does go down and scoop up Atticus Noble's body, and it is reborn. He has a virtual meeting with Belisarius, who tells him that his new mission is to bring in Korra alive so Belisarius can kill her himself. And that was Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire. Apparently they also have a sequel greenlit that's going to be coming out next year, and they may be doing series to develop some of these characters' backstories. What did you think? Did you like Rebel Moon? Let me know down in the comments. And while you're down there, if you can smash the like button and consider subscribing as well, that would be awesome too. But that being said, guys, this is Blaine for Fast Fan Recap signing off, and I'll see you in the next recap. Have a great day. Bye-bye.